Hey everybody, welcome back to the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. This is the Practice Report, is brought to you by Buyers Auto. That's Spencer Holbrook, Tim May, Jeremy Birmingham, and I am Austin Ward. The quarterbacks and linebackers, a unique pairing available after practice as Ohio State gets in the last week and a half stretch of spring camp. So that meant some time with C.J. Stroud, Kyle McCord, Devin Brown, and then a host of defensive tacklers who are having themselves a fine spring as well. Berm, kick us off as usual. What did you learn today?
Confidence.
And it's
Comfort. It's not even really about the on-field stuff. It's just, you talk to C.J. Stroud right now, and it is a totally different person than he was a year ago. And there is so much just peace with his situation right now, and knowing that he doesn't have to stress about somebody taking his job or all the expectations. I mean, he's just a guy that, he talked for 25 minutes out here to the media, and probably could have been a whole lot longer.
I'm not sure which direction the camera is pointing.
And he's still out here. He's still out here. It's an hour later.
Fade routes.
It's an hour later. He's out here working on, catching passes with Marvin Harrison and Jackson Smith and Jigba. And it's just one of these things where you really see a guy that has taken complete control of this football team.
Yeah, last three guys on the field are, like I just told you guys before we started recording, three of the best players in the country, and they're led by C.J. Stroud, and he's finally leaving the field now. But the confidence that he shows in everything he does is such a, I don't want to say complete 180, because I think he's always been a confident guy, but the way that he addresses people, the way that he talks about his position, the way that he just carries himself right now is on a completely different level than something we saw last year. And to be honest, I was never 100% sure if he could ever get to this kind of comfort level. He just seemed like he was a little on edge at all times, and now he just seems so settled in and locked in on getting this program back to where it should be this year, that you kind of get a little bit of confidence in the team based on what you hear from him.
Yeah,
he's one of those guys. Hold on, I think we need to tap the brakes a little bit on Marvin Harrison already being one of the top three players in the country.
Oh, he's one of the best returning receivers after the touchdown Rose Bowl.
He's got a lot of expectations.
We're going to base that off of one game. It's unfair to say that about him with what he's proven. That's Can he become that? Of course. Probably. But let's just...
Yeah. He's one of the top three players in the receiver corps at Ohio State.
There we go.
Can I go that route?
Sure.
I think he was one of the top three players still on the field.
Yeah, I do too. You mean behind us, catching balls from the jugs machine. But we digress. What stands out about C.J. Stroud, if you're going to stay on that bent for a minute, is last year was more of us asking him questions, a little bit we did, and kind of talking the talk. He has now walked the walk, and then some. He is legit. Can I call him maybe the best quarterback in the country?
You can do whatever you want.
I'm just running it by you. He's definitely one of the top two.
I'm going to stop fact checking as we go.
He's definitely one of the top two. Agreed with that?
I think he's the best, but
coming back, there you go. So
you know what?
He's on the record.
It is the difference this year. He was answering questions.
It was still my turn to talk.
I know, but I want to piggyback off that. He was answering questions last year, and now he's telling people things. There's a difference.
Oh yeah. Well, I was going to say you didn't piggyback, you leapfrogged, but that's another story.
We're off to a great start.
But the bottom line is, you just like the confidence he exudes. And he's out here just hanging with his guys, catching fade routes, 50-yard fade routes off of an automatic throwing machine. It's pretty cool to watch.
We dropped one, and I told him that he should stick to playing quarterback, and he flipped me off. So that's the comfort as well, that he knows his personality is continuing to shine through. I've talked about that for the last year plus, about him and the opportunity that he was going to have to do that. And I think that that trickles down to Kyle McCord as well, that, hey, he understands how Kyle McCord understands how good he can be, the potential that he has in this Ohio State offense, the chance to be an NFL quarterback. But a returning Heisman Trophy finalist, one of the odds-on favorites to win it this year, is back. He's not going to win the starting quarterback job, and he knows that. But the picture is also more clear for his future than it was at this time a year ago, or in September, or in November, or in the second week of December. He has said all the right things about the friendship and brotherhood that he felt with Quinn Ewers and Jack Miller, but his clarity, his decision about returning and sticking around and what's in front of him, that all became much easier when those two left. And there's no arguing that point, and he admits that. And you can still be friends and admit that thing was better for him.
I asked him point blank, because I know on Monday someone asked Ryan Day about why Kyle didn't transfer. And I asked him, is this ridiculous? Like, people are suggesting essentially you should transfer. And he sort of just scoffed at the notion, like, why on earth would I leave? I've only been here a year.
Yeah.
And 10 years ago, we would have never expected a quarterback to come into a program, be there a year, and then say, okay, I have to leave now. And like the way that we've just absolutely beat up college football and these new expectations we have on people, I just think it's deplorable, number one. I think it's disgusting that we're doing that to 19-year-olds and say, hey, you should go somewhere else where it's easier. Like, what are we doing? But beyond that,
hey. He's the only quarterback on the roster who's undefeated as a starter.
And he said, I everything is exactly where I want it to be right now. And so, I think, but then we're talking about trickle down. That also trickles down to Devin Brown. I asked him, I said, has this been harder for you or easier? He said, it's actually been a little easier adjusting to college football than he thought, because how could it not be when you have C.J. Stroud and Kyle McCord in front of you teaching you? I mean, there's no pressure on him. You can just come in and learn and be a sponge and put in the work.
But I also think that Kyle understands that in, I think, about 9 months, the program is his. And then Devin understands that, 21 months after that, the program is going to be his. Those guys understand the lineage. And I think that's where the confidence comes from, is that if they take care of business and continue to progress and learn from CJ, their time will come. And they will be the face of one of the top 3 programs in the entire country.
You almost said franchise, but go ahead.
One of the top 3 programs.
We're in a new world.
In the entire country, they will be that face. And so the confidence starts with CJ, but then as it works its way down, you see it with Kyle. You see it with Devin Brown and the way these guys carry themselves. And it's a really impressive group. I don't know which one to be the most impressed by, because I think we're kind of getting used to the way CJ operates. We kind of are used to the way Kyle operates. Now we're starting to get a feel for exactly what you're going to get from Devin Brown. It's really exciting to see.
And flipping the script is talking to Tommy Eichenberg.
Talking at him?
Yeah, talking at him. He's exuding, I think, more confidence than this time a year ago. It's hard to tell with him. Like I told him, I said, you hardly ever say anything in front of us, but you talk to a couple of these other players around here, and they're calling you definitely a leader on this defense. And the reason is he's got credentials now. Just like we're talking about C.J. Stroud, Tommy Eichenberg was the defensive MVP, most outstanding player of the Rose Bowl, brings that with him. And like Taraja Mitchell was talking about him, he has this fierceness about him that everybody gets, that everybody kind of falls in line behind. And it's just interesting to see these guys from one year to the next, a year later, how they've changed, even though maybe Tommy doesn't quite express it the way C.J. Stroud does.
I wish he hadn't taken the challenge of what Tough Borland did in front of the media and said, you know what, I can do that, and I'm going to do it
like I said,
even
few words.
better.
Can you imagine those two in a game of who can be the quietest?
I mean, but
staring at ghosts.
Tough
remember that movie?
Yeah. Tough became a multi-time captain because of the way that he led and the work ethic and the fact that he didn't say a whole lot. And it was always amusing to try and get Tough or a Tommy Eichenberg on the side and be like, is it just the cameras? You just don't want to say anything publicly? Like, that these guys have more of a personality, but they also are deadly serious about their business. And, Tommy Eichenberg, with what he did in that Rose Bowl Defensive Player of the Game performance and sideline-to-sideline tackling, you could see where this was going. I think back to, and I tried to get him to talk about this a little more, and he seemed open to the idea that going from September through October, November, and the experience that you get, the reps in a game, how significant that can be for a player. Yeah. And that's the same process for every player, but it just was a direct callback to what we saw from the linebacker group when Tough Borland was out there for the first time as a starter, when Pete Warner was out there for the first time as a starter. It's never going to be perfect the first time you do it. It's not even going to be perfect the last time you do it. But you could see the progress, and it was undeniable from start to finish. And now that's 3 months later, 4 months later, with another set of winter workouts with perhaps a scheme that's better suited, that they understand or can play with that confidence that Byrne brought up from the start, or the comfort that is another buzzword that comes up here. Yeah. He is clearly taking that opportunity and making the most of it. And from day one till now, there's no linebacker who I've heard his name more than Tommy Eichenberg.
Yeah, and Taraja Mitchell, for example, we're talking to him, and he was dealing with some definite family, personal problems last year, especially preseason and on into the year, that he's now gotten behind him, and he's talking about just his approach. You never know what's going on with these guys.
Well, they're still college students,
exactly,
and they have lives, and
exactly.
It is. I'm struck by just we think about the improved depth on this defense, but if you look at today, we had Reed Carrico out here, Taraja Mitchell, E.A. Neoteote,
Steel
Chambers, and Taraja Mitchell, Tommy Eichenberg. there's not a whole lot of depth at linebacker right now that's healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, you're still missing key players in Cody Simon who aren't out there. But obviously the defense is changing, and that's the one thing. It's going to be that 4-2-5. It's going to be primarily 2 linebackers on the field at a time, and that's where you have Steele and Tommy, who are roommates. They've lived together for their entire time at Ohio State. They are 2 very different types of kids, and I asked Steele, I'm like, how does the roles change? I mean, how does this different? And he said, I can't tell you much about what we're doing because a lot of it we don't even know.
Yeah.
And I asked Tommy, how has this changed for you? He's like, it hasn't, but it has. He just doesn't want to tell us, and I'm totally okay with that.
Like the parallels with the linebackers in 2018 and the linebackers in 2021, pretty startling if you think about it. They're in almost, I don't want to say a bad scheme, but in a scheme that probably wasn't the best for what Ohio State could be doing on defense. And then you get a new face in the defensive room, and the linebackers all of a sudden look like they're the best room in the country in 2019. And you saw that progression last year from the guys just getting better and getting more experience, like you said, Austin. And now this spring, they know that they can take that leap. And that's where that confidence, I think, is coming from, whether it's Tommy not saying much but still showing a little bit of that, Taraja being another year older. Reed Carrico sounds like he's really ready to push for a role. I don't know if that's really in the cards with only 2 linebackers on the field at once, but he's pushing for one. And you just see that these guys know that last year wasn't acceptable. The guys in 2019 knew that 2018 wasn't acceptable. And now you expect to have a leap like the linebacker room had in 2019. You expect that in 2022.
Yeah, I agree. And, the word, their confidence is up, but also their excitement, is the other word I'd throw in there. They're excited about this scheme they're playing. I mean, Devin Brown was talking about it, about looking across the line there and seeing these guys. And it's a very aggressive group who seem to have some confidence about what's coming on, but also confidence in the guys next to them. And I think that's really what we were talking about earlier in the month is that's what's going to pay off for this group down there, because a lot of these guys have seen the bad side, and they don't want to go back there.
Ryan Day said it last year, and it's simple but factual. You can't get better at playing football until you play football.
Yeah.
And a lot of these guys had not played college football when they took the field last year, and now you start to see just that exponential growth, and it's about now finding depth, and that's where I'm concerned at linebacker, not concerned at quarterback. And I think, to put my final point on that room, those guys understand that they're sort of a part of a very exclusive club right now, because Ryan Day's quarterbacks, Ohio State's quarterbacks, are about as hot as it gets in college football. And so each of those guys, I think, grasps the weight of the position that they're in and appreciates the opportunity, whether or not they play here this year or not.
I think if Ohio State or Jim Knowles specifically shared your concern about the linebacker position, Cade Stover wouldn't be a tight end and Mitchell Melton wouldn't be on the defensive line. And I think that when we look at this, and we've seen them run the 4-3, and you know that against Wisconsin, you're probably going to have to.
Yeah.
And
that's why he gets paid $2 million a year, and I don't.
But it's fair to ask the question, because you look at the number of bodies, and it's not what you're accustomed to seeing. But I think that's part of the transition, even from just evaluating this team, is, all right, he only wants to play with 2 true linebackers. And we've talked about this before. Well, sometimes Court Williams could be out there, and he could be doing linebacker things. Mitchell Melton could be sliding back and doing something that a linebacker does from a Jack or a Leo spot, or Jack Sawyer. Some of these responsibilities are going to be shared with the secondary and the defensive line.
3.5, 2.5, 4.5 defense.
And it's almost like you have to take a more, Jim Knowles is this holistic thinker, and that it's from front to back, and he's meditating on, do I have 25 guys that I can trust and not just 6 linebackers? Now. Yeah. Maybe that's an optimist way of looking at it, but they're not going to have 12 linebackers on this roster.
No, and you don't need it. And that's the thing. It's about flexibility. That's why Ohio State recruits the way they have over the last handful of years. This is what Ryan Day has sort of been pushing the defense towards. This is the style that Jeff Hafley played when he arrived here in 2019. They want this multiple front. Now you just happen to have bigger body parts to move into the rush edge, and the
bigger body parts to move into the rut.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Exactly.
But when you look
you got it.
Like you said, when you look at 2019,
jury duty.
When you look at 2019 and 2020, like Pete Werner was the 3rd linebacker, but he also played a lot of safety qualities and coverage against tight ends and stuff.
That was the bullet position.
That was the bullet.
Yeah, I know, but like you said, Berm, all of this is building toward positionless defense.
They're out of bullets now.
Yeah. Secondary guys can play linebacker, defensive ends can play linebacker, linebackers can play some safety roles. It's all interchangeable, but it all somehow comes together in that holistic meditation approach. I don't know.
right.
I mean, a question I'll ask him next time I chance I get. I never asked Ryan Day this. When did he get an inkling that last year wasn't going to work defensively? When
Week 2, I think we know the answer.
I'm talking about even before that. I mean, what did he see? Because like you're talking about, and Birmingham hit on it a while ago, he knows what he's trying to do offensively to mess with people. There are other people around the country, even in the Big Ten, that are doing the same things offensively to try to mess with defenses. And I'm just wondering when it struck him. Was it late spring? Was it the first or second week?
I think it was 4th and 1 against Minnesota when all of a sudden you're up a 55-yard run.
I mean,
I don't think it was. I don't think it was in the preseason because
that's a long time to live with that, on your mind.
But you wouldn't have gone into Minnesota and Oregon with that plan if you were concerned in spring.
Yeah.
I just
want to know. I'm just interested in how much he knew of the plan. Is more of the.
What did he know and when did he know?
Because he's turned it over totally to Jim Knowles now. He trusts this guy.
He ordered a code red
to bring the plane exactly. You need him on that wall.
Not yet.
Man, how did that get diverted?
We should probably end this show.
It's been a wonderful,
bizarre. We'll be back here Friday.
Practice report brought to you by Buyers Auto. We will be back here Friday. Running out of days in spring somehow. It's come and gone faster than I ever would have imagined. It's just because we're having fun. That's Spencer Holbrook, Tim May, Jeremy Birmingham. I'm Austin Ward. We will see you back here on Friday. Stay tuned for full coverage of the Ohio State Buckeyes at LettermenRow.com.